Her so-called best friend, Marcus, decided to take a shot at me during dinner one night. Out of nowhere, he smirked and said, "She could do way better than you." I didn't let it slide. I shut him down right there at the table in front of everyone. That's when Claire snapped at me. "Apologize or we're done." I just smiled. I didn't give her the apology, didn't give him the satisfaction. I stayed quiet, but I knew the score. Weeks later, when she finally walked back into our house, she got her first real lesson in what the word done actually means. For 3 years, life with Claire had been good. Honestly, it was great. I'm a lawyer, which means my 9 to 5 is basically swimming through the ugliest parts of human behavior. Coming home to Claire felt like stepping outside and filling my lungs with clean, fresh air. She worked as a paralegal, sharp as hell, with this burning drive to get to law school and carve out a career of her own. I love that about her. We weren't just dating. We were partners, building a future together in a house I had poured years of sweat into restoring. It felt real, solid. I wasn't just covering bills for a girlfriend. I was investing in the woman I thought I'd marry. But there was always this low hum in the background, this little static that wouldn't go away. That static had a name, Marcus. Marcus had been Claire's best friend since college. He was a graphic designer, the type who called himself an artist, while acting like working a regular job was basically a prison sentence. The guy barely scraped by making menus for taco joints, but you'd think he was Picasso the way he carried himself. According to Claire, Marcus was her rock, her ride or die, her platonic soulmate. To me, he was nothing more than a leech with a superiority complex, and his favorite pastime was chipping away at our relationship. I'll give him this, he was slick. Never anything I could call him out on directly. Instead, he specialized in these little digs, backhanded compliments, tiny poison darts that left a sting. His favorite weapon was Claire's ex, a musician named Ethan who had broken her heart years before I came along. No matter what I did, Marcus could twist it back to Ethan. If I surprised Claire with a vacation to Miami, Marcus would lean back with that nostalgic grin and say, "Remember when we just grabbed our stuff and went camping that one weekend, Claire? You can't plan moments like that. You just have to be with someone who understands your free spirit." And the message was always the same. I was the safe, boring choice, while he was the keeper of all those wild, exciting memories she'd supposedly left behind. The worst part? Claire bought it. Every word. She ate up his protective best friend routine like it was gospel. Anytime I even hinted that he was crossing a line, she'd instantly defend him. "He's just being Marcus. He was there for me when Ethan broke me. He's just worried. He's family, Daniel." Now, I'm a patient man. My job forces me to be. In court, you don't jump on the first piece of evidence. You sit back. You let the other side talk themselves into a corner. You wait until they hand you the rope. So, I waited for Marcus to hand me the rope. The chance finally came about a month ago. I had just won the biggest case of my career, 6 brutal months of my life gone. Countless sleepless nights, weekends buried in files, living and breathing nothing but work. But we won. It was a massive deal for me and for the firm. To celebrate, I threw a dinner party. My closest friends, the ones I'd practically disappeared on for half a year, were all there. And because I was still trying to play the good guy, I told Claire she could invite her friends too. Which, of course, meant Marcus. The night was lined up perfectly. My house, the one I'd spent years fixing with my own 2 hands, was buzzing with voices and laughter. The lights were warm, the food was laid out just right, and that expensive bottle of wine I'd been saving for a real occasion was finally breathing in crystal glasses. For the first time in months, I actually let my shoulders drop. I wasn't thinking about cases, deadlines, or cross-exams. I was just enjoying life. Of course, Marcus was there, circling like a vulture that had found its way into a family dinner. He was nursing my wine like it was a bottle of liquid gold, leaning back in his chair as if he owned half the place. The guy always acted like my generosity was his birthright. After a few glasses, his tongue got loose, too loose. He decided the room needed one of his little performances. He launched into some drawn-out story about an art exhibit, but everyone at the table knew it wasn't about the art. It was about him. It was always about him. The rant twisted into one of his favorite speeches, about the big, cosmic difference between creatives and suits. "It's just a completely different way of seeing the world," he said, letting his gaze land squarely on me. "Some people live for passion, for art. Others, well, They're just practical. Then he took a slow, deliberate sip of my wine, like he was making a toast to himself. My friends weren't impressed. They'd been around enough to see through the act. A couple of them were shooting him daggered looks over their glasses, the kind of looks that could curdle milk. I gave him nothing more than a tight smile. I wasn't going to give him the satisfaction of a reaction. But Marcus? He couldn't stand silence. He turned toward Claire, softening his tone, slipping into that concerned best friend role he loved to play. I just hope you're happy, Claire, he said, his voice dripping with a fake sweetness. I mean, Daniel's a good guy. He's stable. He provides. He's reliable. He let that last word hang in the air like it was an insult. Reliable. As if stability was a flaw, not a strength. Then he turned his eyes back to me. There was a beat, a pause, and then that smug little smirk slid across his face. But let's be honest, she could do way better than you. And just like that, he handed me the rope. The room froze. It was so quiet you could hear the faint hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. My closest friends looked like they were seconds away from leaping over the table. Claire sat motionless, staring down at her plate, cheeks burning. Not with anger, no. She wasn't upset at him. She was just embarrassed that he'd gone and made a scene. That was the moment it all clicked for me. Everything sharpened. The patience I carried with me as a lawyer, the calm observer, the man who watches and waits, that guy was gone. What replaced him was the man who had just been challenged in his own house, insulted in front of his friends, by a parasite sipping wine he hadn't paid for. I set my fork and knife down with slow precision, folded my hands neatly, and fixed my stare on Marcus. The host had left the room. The prosecutor was standing at the podium. That's a bold claim, Marcus, I said, my voice low and steady, almost conversational. I'd love to hear your reasoning. In your expert opinion, what does a better man for Claire look like? Spell it out. Be specific. He blinked, thrown off balance. He'd come loaded for a shouting match, but that's not what I gave him. I gave him cross-examination. Well, you know, he stammered. Someone more on her level. A creative. Someone who gets her. I nodded like a teacher humoring a slow student. I see. So the main qualification is being a creative. Interesting theory. And, of course, you see yourself as that man. He straightened in his chair, puffing out his chest. I think I understand her better than anyone. Perfect, I said, letting the word hang in the air. So you're the gold standard. Let's test that. Let's add a little depth to your theory. Let's talk about something more tangible than feelings. Let's talk about investment. The table leaned in. My friends were practically vibrating, waiting for me to dismantle him. As everyone here knows, I continued, Claire's in her second year of law school. A top-tier program, with a price tag that proves it. And I'm the one paying for that. Every single cent. That's not just money. It's an investment of faith. Faith in her. Faith in our future. Tell me, Marcus. I tilted my head slightly, never breaking eye contact. What exactly have you invested? Faith in her, and faith in the future we're building together. My words came out steady, controlled. Then I leaned in slightly, my eyes still locked on Marcus. So here's my question for you. Marcus, the self-appointed gold standard of what's better for Claire. What exactly have you invested in her future? Other than constantly tearing me down, what have you actually put on the table? Marcus's face went pale, like I'd just yanked the floor out from under him. Claire's eyes darted to mine, wide and frantic. Daniel, don't do this, she whispered, almost pleading. I raised a hand without looking at her, my focus never leaving Marcus. I'm not finished. I let the silence stretch for a beat before continuing, calm and deliberate. Let's start small. The car Claire drives, safe, reliable, gets her to and from campus every day. I bought that car for her. Now, Marcus, you've got your little convertible, don't you? Cute car. Problem is, it breaks down more than it runs. And when it does, who bails you out? Claire. At least 5 times in the last 6 months, if my math's right. And where did she pull that money from? Our household account. The one I fund entirely. So, in a very real sense, Marcus, I'm not just investing in Claire's future. I'm keeping your hipster death trap on the road. You're welcome. One of my buddies at the far end of the table snorted so hard, he almost choked, disguising it as a cough. The corners of a few other mouths twitched. Marcus, though, looked like he'd just taken a punch straight to the gut. But I wasn't finished. Not even close. I leaned forward, dropping my voice so the words carried heavier. Let's move on to the roof over Claire's head. This house, we're sitting in it right now. I pay the mortgage. I do the repairs. I keep the lights on and the heat running. Meanwhile, you've been late on rent so many times your landlord could probably write a novel about it. And when you fall behind, who's there to cover you? Claire again. And where does she get that money? From me. From the paycheck I earned. Marcus flinched, but I pressed on, letting the silence afterward weigh like a gavel. So, to summarize your argument for the jury, excuse me, for the table, a couple people chuckled quietly at that, though no one broke the tension. Your position is that a man who provides a stable home, a reliable car, and a fully funded, top-tier education is somehow an inferior choice. And by your definition, a better man would be one who drains her finances, leans on her kindness, and undermines her relationship at every chance, all because of what can only be described as a sad, transparent, and frankly creepy obsession. Did I get that right, Marcus? Then I leaned back, folding my arms, my cross-examination complete. The closing argument was on the record. The silence that followed was absolute. You could hear the faint clink of a glass settling back on the table. Marcus sat there like a man gutted, his smugness stripped clean away. He couldn't even form words. My friends? They were looking at him with open contempt, the kind of looks that said you're done here. And then there was Claire. Her face was a storm, emotions crashing and colliding under the surface. Shock, embarrassment, confusion, but cutting through all of it wasn't relief, wasn't gratitude. It was rage. Pure, white-hot fury. She shot up so fast her chair screeched across the floor. Her whole body was shaking. I cannot believe you just did that, she hissed, every word vibrating with anger. You humiliated him in front of everyone. I exhaled slowly, my voice tired now. He humiliated himself, Claire. All I did was present the evidence. Her eyes burned into me, blazing with a fire that wasn't aimed at Marcus at all. It was aimed at me. Apologize to him, she demanded. Right now? Apologize to my best friend for what you just did. And then she dropped the final card on the table, her voice sharp enough to cut. Apologize, or we're over. And there it was, the ultimatum. The last piece of evidence. The verdict written clear. She stood there, not by me, not even neutral. She stood next to the wreckage of a man I had just laid bare as a manipulative parasite. And yet, she defended him. She chose him. In that moment, something inside me didn't just break, it was executed. Clean, final, irreversible. The love I carried for her didn't fade, didn't wither. It was cut down in an instant, like the swing of a judge's gavel. I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time, I saw her with complete clarity. No illusions. No excuses. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. Instead, I smiled. A small, sad smile that carried the weight of finality. It was the kind of smile you give at the end of a story when there's nothing left to say. Then I stood, lifted my wine glass with quiet precision, and walked into the kitchen, leaving her alone in that silent dining room. The case was closed. The verdict delivered. The aftermath was immediate. Claire and Marcus stormed out together, shrouded in the drama of her fury and his humiliation. She moved in with him that very night, a reckless choice made in the haze of anger and bruised pride. In her mind, it was a bold move, a gauntlet thrown. She believed I'd come crawling back, ready to grovel, to undo the damage, to beg for her forgiveness. She couldn't have been more wrong. Because I didn't chase. I accepted her ultimatum. And then I vanished. For 2 weeks, I went completely dark. Calls, texts, voicemails, I ignored them all. The messages came in waves. Angry first, then confused, then pleading. She sent mutual friends to intercede, to tell me I was being stubborn, to remind me of what we had. I ignored them too. I became a ghost. But I wasn't idle. While she was raging, I was working. The house that had once felt like our home now felt contaminated, like a crime scene. So I treated it like one. Over a weekend, I methodically packed every single one of her belongings into boxes. I didn't throw things. I didn't slam doors. This wasn't anger. It was procedure, a cleansing. I was an executor settling the estate of a dead relationship. When I finished, I stacked the boxes neatly in the spare room, changed every lock, reset every security code, and with the same calm, professional detachment I used in court, I made 2 phone calls. Neither was pleasant. Both were necessary. The first was to the dean of admissions at her law school. I had a good relationship there, alumni connections I'd nurtured over the years. I explained, in measured professional terms, that due to a permanent change in personal circumstances, the private scholarship fund I had established to cover Claire's tuition was being dissolved, effective immediately. The second call was to the managing partner at my firm. I had moved heaven and earth to secure Claire a coveted summer internship there. It was the kind of opportunity that launches a career. And with the same calm detachment, I explained that an irreconcilable conflict of interest had arisen, and the offer would need to be rescinded. I didn't take joy in it, but my support for her had been built on the foundation of our partnership, and she had taken a sledgehammer to that foundation. The consequences were inevitable. She could no longer live under my roof. She could no longer benefit from my name, my money, or my influence. Exactly 2 weeks after the dinner, she showed up at my door. I watched through the security camera as she fumbled with her old key, confusion twisting into anger when it no longer worked. Finally, she rang the bell. I opened the door with the security chain still in place. What I saw wasn't the fiery woman I once loved or the righteous accuser from that night. She looked hollow. Her anger was gone, burned out. What replaced it was desperation, tired, heavy, raw. The reality of living with a broke, narcissistic artist had hit her like a winter storm, and it had stripped her bare. She showed up at my door like a ghost from a life I'd already buried. "Daniel, we need to talk," she said, her voice trembling, almost breaking. I shook my head. "No, Claire, we don't. You made your choice, and the conversation ended the moment you picked him." Tears welled up in her eyes as she tried to push back. "You can't just throw away 3 years over one stupid fight." My chest tightened, but my voice stayed calm. "That wasn't a fight, Claire. That was the moment of truth. You had a clear line in front of you. Your partner, the man who had your back, or the guy who's been trying to tear us apart from the start. And you picked him. You even demanded I apologize to him, like I was the problem. That's not something I can forgive, and it sure as hell isn't something I can forget." I could see panic creeping into her expression. She knew I wasn't bluffing. "But everything we planned," she stammered. "Law school, the internship." "Yeah," I said, letting a long silence stretch out before I continued. "Your tuition for the last semester is due next week, right? Well, I hope you and Marcus have a plan, because the money I was investing in our future, that's gone. Permanently." Her face drained of color. She whispered, "What?" like she couldn't believe it. "And the internship," I added, my tone flat and merciless. "That offer's been rescinded. My firm doesn't play games with conflicts of interest. They take it seriously, just like I do." She actually staggered back a little, like I'd physically hit her. Her hand flew to her mouth as the reality sank in. That internship wasn't just a job. It was her golden ticket. It was everything she'd been building toward, and now it was gone. "You can't do that," she whispered, her voice cracking apart. "Daniel, please, you can't." But I'd already done it. Actions have consequences, Claire. You gave me an ultimatum. You said, apologize, or we're done. Well, I picked done. Now it's your turn to live with it. Go ask Marcus for help. The man who was supposed to be so much better than me. I'm sure his creative genius comes with a plan for paying 60 grand in tuition and replacing the career you just lost." I closed the door on her tear-streaked face. And standing there on the other side, I didn't feel joy. I didn't feel grief either. I just felt quiet. The trial was over. The verdict had been read. The fallout came exactly the way I knew it would. Claire's world collapsed. She had to walk away from law school just months before graduation. The dream she'd wrapped her entire identity around, dead. As for her and Marcus, they're still together, or so I hear, sharing his cramped little apartment. Friends tell me it's misery in real time. She's eaten alive by resentment over what he cost her, and he's shackled to a bitter reminder of his own failures. He won her, but what he ended up with is a broken version of the woman I once loved, and he has no way to fix her. I never did this to get revenge. I did it to reclaim myself. A relationship, to me, is a contract, and loyalty is the first and most important clause. She shattered that. My actions weren't punishment. They were simply the natural enforcement of terms she chose to break. She wanted to know what done really means. Well, now she knows. It means the support ends. The investment dries up, and the builder walks away, leaving her standing in the ruins of the house she helped set on fire.